did you know 70% of employees are not engaged in their work, according to Gallup research? They estimate that disengaged employees cost American companies $300 billion a year. The cost is also high for the employees. In addition to being dissatisfied at work, disengaged employees are more likely to be unhappy and to be unhealthy. In today's presentation, Keith Baldwin will share tips for coaching employees to a higher level of engagement. Now, Keith Baldwin is a career revitalization coach who helps others fully engage in their work so that they can find meaning and monetary rewards throughout their daily endeavors. After experiencing intense job dissatisfaction many years ago, Keith began studying elements of career satisfaction and engagement. This led to studies in motivation, mentoring, and career coaching. Along the way, Keith completed a Master in Adult Education degree with an emphasis on human resource development and leadership. Now, Keith has received the Distinguished Toastmaster Award from Toastmasters International, and he's in numerous insurance designations, including a chartered financial consultant, a chartered life underwriter, chartered property and casualty underwriter. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome Mr. Keith Baldwin.
Well, thank you, everybody. There's one piece that's missing from my introduction that I'd like to add right now. I hate to brag, but I'm a bit of a home improvement expert. I'd like to think of myself as Mr. Fix-It. But Cindy gets really nervous, my wife Cindy gets really nervous every time I start doing something to the house. She came down about a month ago, and I'm down in the downstairs with this blowtorch replacing the hot water heater. And she comes down and looks at me and says, "Do you even know what you're doing?" I said, "Well, yeah, I watched a video on YouTube." I mean, YouTube is so awesome. Anything you want to fix in your house or work on your house, there's a video for it. Like a while back, I needed to redo the grout. And so I found a guy called the Grout Guy on YouTube. And he said, it's so easy, anybody can do it. And sure enough, you just mix some mud together, you slather it across the tiles, and then you just take a damp sponge and wipe it off. I mean, this guy made it look like it takes about 3 minutes. So I thought, as long as I'm going to do one, I might as well do all the bathrooms in the house. So I get the mud, mix it up to the right consistency, and I figure if a little grout's good, a lot's got to be better. So I spread it on. It's just covered with grout, and I figured I'm going to let that set up a little bit and go do the other bathroom. So I go down and put the grout on the other bathroom, and now about 25 minutes later, I go back upstairs to the first bathroom with my damp sponge, and the grout has turned to cement. So I start with my damp sponge, I get all wet, and I'm trying to get it wet. It'd be like going out in the driveway with the damp sponge and hoping the concrete gets soft again. And so I'm in there scrubbing with the toothbrush, now knowing that the downstairs bathroom is hardening up. So I run back downstairs, and I get that one all wet again, go back upstairs, and start with the toothbrush and a little Brillo pad. It was a disaster. So Cindy now is starting to get a little worried about my home repair expertise. So I tell her I'm going to finish the downstairs. She says, honey, we could just hire somebody. I said, no, that costs too much money. I'm going to do it. And so I go downstairs, and all I'm doing is putting on trim, a couple light fixtures, and doing some painting. Just simple stuff. I didn't even look at a YouTube video this time. Cindy comes down kind of with a pleased look on her face, but a little bit nervous as she's watching me cut trim and nail the trim on and paint, and got done. It looked awesome. And then about a month later, I went downstairs, and I could still smell what I thought was like a new paint smell. And it's kind of weird, and I walked downstairs, it's been a month, and as I walk across the carpet, my feet start squishing. The carpet is sopped. I yelled, Cindy, the carpet is sopped, and she comes running downstairs, and I look over at the trim and sheetrock is ruined, there's some mold growing on the carpet. So I said, I don't know, must be groundwater from all this rain, and so I reach down and start ripping the trim off, and water comes spraying out of the wall. And I think that's weird, and I start pulling more trim off, and the water's hot. And that's when I looked over at the hot water heating system and think, I wonder where that pipe goes. Sure enough, when I cut all the trim off, I neatly nailed 7 nails into the piping. Cindy insisted that I not fix that myself. And we called the plumbing place, as well as the carpenters. They came out and fixed the plumbing, replaced the carpet, and replace the sheetrock. My home improvement project was very expensive. Now when I want to do something, Cindy goes, you know, honey, let's just hire somebody. But do you ever notice when you hire somebody that they're just not as engaged? You know, they're just not as invested in the project as we are when we do it ourselves. There's this place I go to get fish, just one of the local grocery stores. And the guy's response when I walk up is always, do you need something? Do you need something? In contrast that with, Cindy and I went to this fusion kind of Chinese place, Ling and Louie's. And this gal comes bubbling up to our table and says, hi, can I help you? And Cindy says, well, do you have any tea? Oh yeah, we have great tea. We have this awesome tea. And she's bouncing on her toes. And Cindy said, well, what type of tea do you have? She goes, well, let me go get the box because I get this great selection. And she like scampers away, comes back with this box of tea and opens it up. And she goes, isn't this awesome? And there's like 7 teas in there. But they're awesome teas. All during dinner, Cindy was going, man, this is awesome tea. Because she told us it was awesome. So how do you get engaged employees like that? You know, isn't that interesting that you can have 2 different people probably not making that much difference in income, so it's not money. In fact, money is an interesting thing for motivation. Research and study after study shows that money is only an incentive when it's very rudimentary, do this, do that, do this activities. So it's doesn't require much cognitive ability or emotional intelligence. Then money or the carrot and the stick rewards that we've always heard about, they work as expected. But as soon as you add any sort of cognitive skills or emotional intelligence like customer service, money has actually been shown to detract from performance. So if it's not money, then what is it? Well, Daniel Pink wrote this book called Drive, and it really kind of summarized some of the studies and research on motivation into 3 different areas: autonomy, mastery, and purpose. So you can kind of think about it as AMP. You know, there's like this energy drink, AMP. So if you want to amp up motivation for your employees, think about autonomy, mastery, and purpose. So I just want to briefly hit on those 3 topics, and then pulling from a little bit of coaching and mentoring research, talk about maybe how to apply those with the workforce. So first, autonomy. You know, don't we all want freedom? You know, we may be conditioned to think we don't, but I think it's something that's just innate in all of us. In fact, I think it's innate in the animal kingdom. Have you ever had a dog that doesn't want to run? You know, I had this yellow lab that I decided would be great to learn how to ski jor, so I took my yellow lab Rocky out to the local ski park, Kincaid. And he's all excited, and I got him sitting behind me, and I got the harness on him, and you know, I reached down to get my skis on, turn around and look at my son Chris, and I say, hey Chris, you ready to go? At the word go, Rocky took off, the rope wrapped around my legs. Next thing I know, it's flat on my back looking at the stars. He just wanted freedom. He wanted autonomy. And I'm pretty much the same way. I really relish autonomy. So the challenge is, in a workforce, is how do you bring autonomy in? Ken Blanchard has this saying that I really like. He says that a river without banks is just a puddle. And I think that's a useful concept to think about when we think about autonomy, that we still need a structure that people work in. You know, if we have a shop that opens up at 9 a.m. in the morning, we can't just tell employees, hey, show up whenever you want. You know, we need people there at 9. So we have to have some structure, but within that structure, how can we create freedom? Like our bubbly tea lady at Ling and Louie's, she had freedom to express herself. You know, sometimes you go to McDonald's, like, welcome to McDonald's, how may I help you? And you hear that same thing over and over again. She was not programmed. It just flew, it came out of her naturally. And so the same thing with autonomy in the workforce is just thinking about how can we create structures in the workforce that allow people to express freely who they really are, to bring their real selves to the workforce. So that's autonomy. Mastery just means that we enjoy getting better at something. We may not be a master at it right now, but we enjoy and know that we can get better at it. It's like one of my first karaoke experiences. It was horrible. I had had maybe only, I think, 2 beers. I really hadn't had much, but a bunch of family people with peer pressure said, "Hey, Keith, get up and sing the song with us." I said, "Oh, yeah, sure, why not?" Elvira. Elvira. I still had this nightmare, and it felt like I was stuck in this nightmare. 4 of us up there, all of us out of key. You can hear the sound coming at you. You can tell your own voice, but I could not get back into key. And so I gave up on karaoke after that because it was an embarrassing, horrible experience. But for some reason, I like to sing. And so I bought my own karaoke setup and started practicing. In fact, we even went so far that we started a band at our company that I worked for at the time. So nobody paid me. We practiced 3 hours a night leading up to this Christmas party. I practiced at home an hour or 2, usually most days in the mornings. Poor Cindy had to listen to me sing the same song over and over and over again. But isn't it interesting? Nobody was paying me to do that. But I was spending, by the time we're done, probably over 100 hours over about a 3-month period of time trying to get better at singing. And so that the concept of mastery can also be applied for employees to help them see their potential and then help them develop that so that they get a sense of mastery over whatever it is that both fits their purpose and also the company purpose. So we have autonomy and mastery, which then leads into the third piece that Daniel Pink talks about, and that's purpose. To have a purpose, to feel like we're connected with something bigger, and that, as Steve Jobs said, we can put a ding in the universe. That there's something in us that we want to contribute. You know, I kind of got lost on that because about 15 years ago, I was just miserable. I came home from work one night and I, once again, was in a bad mood. It was pretty much a real common thing. And I come home, and Cindy's always bubbling. She says, "Hi, honey, how was your day?" And I swore at her and said, "How did that blank blank think my day was?" I just stormed past her, and she followed me into the bedroom and said, "You know, what was that all about?" And I said, "Well, you know I hate my job. I mean, why ask me how my day was when you know I hate my job?" And so we get into this argument, and finally she's crying and says, "You know, just quit. You know, no job is worth being this miserable. No job is worth that. So we'll sell the house, sell one of the cars, we'll get a small apartment, just quit." And that was my turning point, because at that point, I thought, quit and do what? You know, get another job that I'll be miserable in 2 years from now? And so I started on my self-discovery and basically found purpose. And I did that through hiring a mentor, through reading and writing, but I found how I wanted to contribute to the world. Interesting thing is that then I brought that purpose into the same job that I had and was no longer unhappy. I wasn't content. I didn't want to stay in that same job for the rest of my life because I knew that I wanted to do coaching and speaking, but I was happy because I brought the purpose of making a positive difference in the lives of other people into the same job and actually volunteered to do extra projects. We started these self-development groups, and I became very engaged in my work. So I went from being disengaged and unhappy to engaged in the exact same job, working for the exact same people, and very happy, feeling like I was making a contribution. As Jim Rohn used to say, that when you change, it will all change for you. And that was my experience. So those are the 3 elements that are just so important to bring into any sort of work environment so that employees have the feeling of autonomy, mastery, and purpose. So the question is, you know, how can we bring those in? And I think mentoring provides some of those answers for us. Laurent Dalloz, who wrote this book just called Mentor, he suggests that effective mentors basically do 3 things. We provide support, we provide challenge, and we help people find their vision. And so with support, we help people believe in themselves. And we create areas for them to work and to have small growth so that they start believing in themselves. Because really, self-confidence really comes from having positive experiences. You know, actually comes from the actions we take, and the actions we take have little mini successes, and the mini successes give us the courage to take on bigger challenges. And so within support, we want to let people know that they have a resource in us to help them, but also then to challenge them. In fact, Dr. Dalloz puts it on a graph showing support and challenge on a graph. And if you have high levels of support and no challenge, people won't grow. if you just tell everybody that, great job today and great job today, and you don't ever challenge them to do something harder, they won't grow. At the same time, if you have high levels of challenge and really low support, they won't grow. And so the key is to balance that. And challenge is just such an interesting element of getting people, encouraging people to take on that higher level of engagement. And then the final piece is purpose. And for me, I talked a little bit about that a couple minutes ago, but to help people find what they're really here for. And for me, purpose, I discovered purpose through the mentoring piece that I talked about and through just the writing and the reading, and finally came up with the areas that I knew I wanted to focus on. And so for anybody who's trying to help somebody find purpose, one of the things that I suggest is to create a crisis. Have you ever heard a speaker get up and say, I was just going along in life and everything was just fine, and then I got in this horrible car accident and my whole life changed, and now I know what I'm about. Or all of a sudden my spouse passed away, and before I just thought going to work was important, and now I know what my life's about. Well, why wait for a tragedy? So what I suggest is people create a crisis in their own mind and go through a list of all those important pieces in our life, our family, our relationships, how we spend our time, as a husband, as a wife, as a father, all those different things, and just answer a question in each one of those key areas in life. I wish I had. So I project myself forward and then look back, creating that crisis in my mind. So if I was in a hospital and they told me this was my last week, to think back on each one of those things and answer the question, I wish I had. And just what would we do different? And just answer that for each one of those areas. And once we've created that crisis, then we can take those key elements of I wish I had and look for those common threads. And then the next step is to write an obituary. I know it sounds kind of negative, but in my obituary, I lived till 115. So it was a great life. And so I just wrote my obituary in the present tense, as if all these things came to pass. And by doing that, it's helped me kind of identify, why I'm here. What's really important to me. And now that I've identified that, I know how I should spend my time. So I encourage everybody to think about how can you bring those key elements, the AMP commercial, into the workplace and into your life, and then do that using the key elements of mentoring. Thank you.